I'd beg to move the House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. I'd let the front benches swap over. Well, aren't here to listen to the adjournment debate, they should leave the chamber. We're moving on to the adjournment debate. Wera, Hobhouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, research conducted by the University of Bath has uncovered that 1 in 6 vapes confiscated in schools contained the synthetic drug spice. Using a device developed at the university, the world's first portable device that instantly detects synthetic drugs, Professor Chris Putney conducted tests in 38 schools in London, the West Midlands, Greater Manchester and South Yorkshire. Tests on just under 600 vapes confiscated in schools revealed that 1 in 6 contained spice, while 1 in 100 contained THC, the psychoactive component of cannabis. Spice was found in confiscated vapes in nearly 3/4 of schools studied. The researchers say these findings are likely representative across the country. What is more shocking, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that these vapes were not even confiscated under the suspicion they contained illicit drugs. I recently met with Professor Chris Putney to gain a better understanding of the wider issue and the device being used to detect synthetic drugs. It struck me, speaking to Chris and seeing this detection device up close, just how serious this issue is for young people. Many of the confiscated vapes containing spice were made to look exactly like a normal product from a shop, and they are usually sold as if they contained THC. Children are inadvertently consuming spice while under the impression it is cannabis. Vapes containing THC are common in the United States, where they are legal in some states. But it is expensive and difficult to import these into the UK. Spice, on the other hand, is cheap and abundant in the UK. So, it is in the interest of dealers to use this highly addictive substance under the pretense that it is cannabis. Spice is highly addictive, a Class B drug commonly used in prisons. Synthetic cannabinoids are associated with half of non-natural death in prisons. Addiction to spice inevitably leads to serious, high-risk health outcomes, including hallucinations, dizziness, chest pain, breathing difficulties, and damage to vital organs. Spice users are frequently seen slumped on the streets in a state of semi-consciousness, unkindly described by some media as seeming zombified. There have now been numerous instances of children collapsing at schools, requiring hospitalization and intensive care, and tragically becoming addicted to spice. The highly addictive nature of spice makes it a gateway to criminal activity, coercion, and abuse. Being in this state as a young person inevitably makes you incredibly vulnerable. One user described smoking spice as like being in a coma. This year, a group of school children in southeast London were hospitalized by an illicit vape, with one of them ending up in an induced coma. Head teachers have spoken about children collapsing in hallways. One school in London wrote to all parents after concerns about the risk of children experiencing severe health problems and the same story is replicated across the country. Of course.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way and for raising this important subject in the House this evening. It's not just London where this is a problem, and indeed in Cornwall, 750 illegal vapes have been seized in the last year, and the Assistant Director of Public Health in Cornwall have said that this is just the tip of the iceberg. So it really is a very serious problem, and it affects many areas, including our own.
I thank him for this intervention, and absolutely, I'm just naming one example where it's been particularly experienced and where head teachers have come forward. But he's absolutely right, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is across the country, and particularly across vulnerable communities, and we all have them in our constituencies, and this is why it is relevant to all of us. This issue is far more common than previously thought. We need to increase awareness of the issue amongst parents and teachers, and I hope this debate goes some way towards it. It is not just the health outcomes of spice that are harmful, though. It is also the criminality and abuse that becoming addicted to a drug like spice can lead to. For young people who are vulnerable, this can include being pressured into drug dealing themselves through blackmail or other forms of coercion. When I raised the issue at Business Questions last week, the Leader of the House assured me that this issue would be addressed in the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. I would like clarity from the government on what this would look like. It is already illegal to sell vapes to children. Spice is illegal for everyone. Which specific parts of the bill will target illegal drugs in vapes? What is crucial to this issue is that the vapes that contain spice are almost all refillable ones, not single-use. Refillable vapes are rechargeable and feature an empty pot that can be filled up with a liquid of choice. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill, Madam Deputy Speaker, being brought forward by the government, is largely focused on disposable vapes. It will hopefully bring in much-needed measures, for example, to restrict the flavours of vapes and to stop the free distribution of vapes to children. These are all measures that myself and the Liberal Democrats support and have been calling for. But this, yes, I'm happy to give way.
Thank you for giving way. I just wanted to come in on what you were talking about what more we can do for this issue around young children, and you're incredibly right.
Order. Please be seated.
Oh.
The you refers to the chair. So if you're referring to the honourable member, an intervention should be short as well.
Oh. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Apologies. I just wanted to raise the issue of the fact that with young people, we need to be very mindful about the fact that this is a cognitive development time. And we have to be very mindful of the fact that this is a very formative time in terms of what they understand. And so the banning of advertising of vapes to young children and making sure that the packaging is not actually attractive for young people is incredibly important. Thank you.
I agree with the Honourable Lady, and also pointing out how vulnerable young people are, and therefore some bits of the bill will address the issue. But I'm particularly talking today about refills and what the government is intending to do about refills and the ready availability on the internet. The Metropolitan Police have warned parents that many children are getting their hands on these illicit vapes through social media platforms such as Snapchat and Telegram. Gone are the days when you needed to meet a sketchy person in a black alley to get hold of illegal drugs. These days, these drugs are now readily available over the internet, and that is a big part of the problem. The ease with which these drugs are trafficked via social media, coupled with a widespread prevalence of vaping in schools, is hugely worrying and demands immediate intervention. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill presents a timely opportunity to address this escalating threat, but amendments must be carefully considered to effectively combat the unique challenges posed by spice. These illicit vapes are almost always refillable, with the spice liquid mainly obtained online, Madam Deputy Speaker. Changing the packaging of legal single-use vapes sold in physical shops will do nothing to address this issue. Too often, government's reflex is to ban something without understanding the underlying issues. If this government believes putting an end to pretty packaging will just have an effect on spice, I ask the government really to look at this again. One of the ways we can push back against this problem is through education. We need to raise awareness of the issue so that the public has a better understanding of it. Having police in schools to talk to students, teachers, and parents is crucial. Parents need to be aware of the signs their child could be at risk. It is not just the public that needs more awareness of these issues, but also us as politicians. We are told that the government is bringing in new restrictions around the sale of vapes to children, but further restrictions to something that is already illegal does do very little to assure experts that appropriate action is being taken. The leader of the House did mention this will come alongside further measures, so I look forward to hearing what these further measures would be. I asked the Minister the following. There needs to be an immediate awareness raising of the issue. The government must do more to inform students, teachers, parents and carers of the scale of the problem and to warn them of the consequences of unknowingly consuming spice. I hope the Minister also realises that the Tobacco and Vapes Bill in its current form will not do enough and do very little to prevent this problem. There are a few critical deficiencies in the current bill. Firstly, it neglects online distribution networks. The bill's emphasis on traditional retail channels does not address the crucial role of online platforms and social media in the distribution of spice-laced vapes. This omission allows illicit vendors to operate with minimal regulatory oversight. Secondly, the Tobacco and Vapes Bill misplaces emphasis on disposable vapes. While well-intentioned, the proposed ban on disposable vapes overlooks the prevalent use of refillable devices for spice consumption. This focus may even unintentionally exacerbate the problem by shifting demands towards refillable vapes, which are more easily manipulated for illicit purposes. Finally, the bill underestimates the complexity of the illicit market. It does not account for the sophisticated tactics employed by drug traffickers, including encrypted communication, cryptocurrency transaction, and direct-to-consumer delivery. This underestimation hinders effective enforcement strategies. What I suggest, Madam Deputy Speaker, are 3 provisions for amendments, and amendments before the bill even comes to the House. First, we must improve regulatory oversight for online platforms. We should mandate content moderation policies for social media platforms and online retailers to prohibit the sale and promotion of spice-laced vapes. The Secretary of State should consider establishing a task force composed of technology company representatives and cybersecurity experts to develop and implement methods for detecting and disrupting online illicit substance distribution networks. And we must allocate increased funding and resources to law enforcement agencies for online surveillance, investigation and prosecution of illicit vendors. Second, we should expand enforcement strategies beyond retail channels, in particular requiring postal and courier services to implement protocols for identifying and intercepting suspicious packages containing spice-laced vapes. And I know this is all not easy, but we must at least look at the serious problem of this. And finally, we should require schools to implement educational programs on the dangers of spice, deceptive marketing tactics, and the risks associated with online and street-level purchase. The NHS should provide funding for harm reduction programs, including support services. With the help of Professor Putney and the University of Bath, I would be very willing to work with the government to establish a national campaign to educate young people about the dangers of spice and empower them to make informed decisions about their health and well-being. Madam Deputy Speaker, tackling this serious problem requires a targeted and proactive approach from the government across various different departments, including the Home Office, Health and Education. And what we must not forget, these are already vulnerable young people who are made even more vulnerable by this serious problem. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill in its current form will not solve this problem. Amending the bill with the provisions I've outlined is crucial to protecting young people from the devastating consequences of spice. I'm looking forward to hearing what the government has to say today, but I'm also looking forward to further cooperation. And we all must be aware of the terrible risks we are facing, in exposing young people to the dangers now, but also to a life of serious addiction. Thank you.
Minister Dame Diana Johnson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Bath for securing this important debate. And I have listened very carefully to her contribution and to the contributions from the Honourable Member for St Ives and my honourable friend, the Member for Worthing West. And I very much share the concerns that have been expressed about this matter. As Minister for Policing, I am really keen to gain as full as an understanding as possible of the threats to public safety, including ones such as this. So while the subject matter of this debate is deeply troubling, I am grateful that it has been brought before the House this evening for consideration. And I'm also appreciative of the research undertaken by Professor Pudney, which has helped to identify this issue. Home Office and health officials met him to discuss his findings, and we continue to consider any emerging evidence on the harms of illicit drugs. So I just want to make some general comments about vapes. So first of all, vapes containing spice are illegal, and no one should be buying or using these products, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. Now, the government welcomes adult smokers switching to vaping as part of the effort to give up smoking, but it discourages the use of vaping by children and non-smokers. As the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Sir Chris Whitty, has said, if you smoke, vaping is much safer. If you don't smoke, don't vape. Marketing vapes to children is utterly unacceptable. The law currently protects children through restricting sales of nicotine inhaling vapes to over 18s only, limiting nicotine content, labelling requirements and through advertising restrictions. And the DHSC is providing £3 million funding over 2 years specifically to enhance the work led by National Trading Standards to tackle underage and illicit vape sales. However, non-nicotine vapes and other nicotine products, such as nicotine pouches, have much lower levels of regulation, and current levels of youth vaping and the targeting of products at children means that further restrictions are needed. And that is why the government will be introducing, as the Honourable Member referred to, the Tobacco and Vapes Bill, to address the high rates of youth vaping alongside introducing measures to make the UK smoke-free. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill includes landmark policies to protect our children from the harms of vaping and the risk of nicotine addiction. Amongst other things, the bill will stop vapes and nicotine products from being deliberately branded and advertised to children, introduce a minimum age sale of 18 on non-nicotine vapes and nicotine products to ensure they cannot be sold to children, ban the free distribution of vaping and nicotine products, and provide government with regulatory making powers to restrict flavours, points of sale displays and packaging for all vaping and nicotine products. The measures in the bill are intended to bring about definitive and positive change to stop future generations from becoming hooked on nicotine, whilst ensuring that vapes can remain a means by which adult smokers can quit. If I can just complete this before I take the Honourable Lady, I do note, though, the proposals that the Honourable Member for Bath has put forward to that bill. And I am very happy to take those away, to discuss that with officials, to share this obviously with the Public Health Minister, because this is his bill that he will be bringing forward. But if the Honourable Lady will allow me to give her that assurance that all those issues that she's raised will be considered, and then I'm very happy to take her, the Honourable Lady.
Thank the Minister very much for giving way. I wondered if the Minister might be able to confirm that the new bill will take the age limit at which people can use cigarettes and vapes up gradually, as was proposed before, and whether that would include vaping and get that caught in the same path, because those who are young, and you refer to children, but they eventually become young adults, young people, adults themselves, and we need to prevent that happening, and vaping being an alternative, it just needs to be stopped.
Again, if I could say that the bill is not within the Home Office's purview, it's within the DHSC. And if I could say that I will ask the Public Health Minister to respond to the Honourable Lady on that point as well, because I'm not cited on the whole bill yet. If I could just move on now to spice and SCRAs. As the Honourable Member for Bath has said, the addition of spice to some vapes is very concerning. Spice is a street name for synthetic cannabinoid receptor agonists, or SCRAs. Now, other brand names are also associated with SCRAs, such as Black Mamba. However, despite the suggestion of a link in the term synthetic cannabinoid, there is no relationship between SCRAs and the cannabis plant. And turning to the legal status of spice and SCRAs, let me just be very clear. Vapes, again, containing SCRAs are illegal. Most SRCAs, including spice, are controlled as Class B drugs via a generic definition under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971. The import, production or supply of a Class B drug carry a maximum sentence of up to 14 years imprisonment and an unlimited fine or both. While there is legislation in place with punitive sanctions to tackle offences, including the supply of SCRAs, there is something particularly concerning about the attempt by some criminals to peddle vapes containing SCRAs designed to appeal to children. And I want to say something about what we can do to deal with that. And the Honourable Member for Bath put forward a number of suggestions. What we do know, and what I'm sure we can agree on, is that early drug use significantly increases exposure to health and social harms, including substance use disorder or dependency later in life. One of the most effective approaches to preventing drug misuse and risky behaviour is through empowering and building resilience in children and young people. And what I'd say is that health education is now a compulsory subject in school and is taught as part of the relationship, sex and health education curriculum. Health education includes content on drugs, alcohol and tobacco. And as with other aspects of the curriculum, schools have flexibility over how they deliver these subjects, so they can develop an integrated approach that is sensitive to the needs and backgrounds of their pupils. So, for instance, in areas where there are significant problems with drugs or vapes, a school can choose to dedicate more time to this topic. The relationship, sex and health education curriculum is currently being reviewed. The Honourable Member may know this. And as part of this review, the Department for Education will explore whether any more content on this subject is required. The Education Secretary has said that children's wellbeing must be at the heart of the RSHE guidance and has committed to look carefully at the public consultation responses and consider the relevant evidence before setting out next steps to take the guidance forward. Now, in respect of vapes specifically, the Department for Education and the Department for Health and Social Care have taken a number of steps to increase training resources and support available for teachers and schools. They've updated the curriculum to include the health risks of vaping and published new online content on the potential risks of vaping for young people. And I note very carefully what the Honourable Member said about parents needing to be educated as well as young people, and also politicians needing to have that education. And the Honourable Member looks like she's about to intervene on me, so I will give way.
I thank you for giving way. I was a secondary school teacher before I came to this house, and I know how difficult it is to teach properly in these often after normal school time lessons. And I know, of course, this is one of the things how we can do it. Clearly, this needs a targeted campaign. Does she not agree that this problem is so alarming that we need to look at a dedicated campaign rather than leaving it to these lessons, which I know reach some young people but not that many?
Obviously, the Honourable Member has a great deal of experience in education and what works with young people and teaching these really important but difficult subjects. And I think from the number of issues she's raised and approaches she would like to see adopted, as I said at the outset, I'm very happy to take that back and to look at what officials' advice they'll give to me and also to the Public Health Minister. So I'm very happy to do that. But I did want to say that I agreed with her about parents as well as politicians also being educated on this. I just wanted to say something about the dangers of SCRAs, and information about the dangers of those is readily available now on Frank, which is the government-funded National Drug and Alcohol Advisory Service, and that does explain that these SCRAs can be more potent than cannabis, and that the effects may last for life. And it also says that there may be unknown effects because we're very early into this. So I think that's important to note. I think in closing, I just again want to thank the Honourable Member for Bath for raising this important and concerning matter. I hope I've made clear that not only are there punitive measures available to tackle those who illegally supply these dangerous drugs, but also that the government is alive to the dangers of children vaping more widely, as well as in these particular instances. And through measures planned to be introduced in the Tobacco and Vapes Bill, we aim to reduce the availability of vapes to children. And I certainly will feed back, as I've promised, to the Public Health Minister the issues she has with what she thinks should be in that bill. Thank you.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As many of their opinions say aye? Aye. The ayes have it. Order, order.